just came to office and I opened my email and I just got the O1 visa. Can't believe it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Whims journal. It's been a minute, huh? Or maybe exactly a year since I started this channel, and close to 11 months since I last posted on this channel. Guilty as charged, I'm sorry about that. More importantly, I was basically, I think, recovering from the difficult year that 2025 was in a lot of ways for the first part of this year, pretty much. So anyway, quick recap that back around mid-July last year, I was anyway under a lot of immigration stress because obviously my F1 STEM OPT was expiring towards the end of the year. I did not have the H1B visa because I did not get picked in the lottery, and on top of that I was laid off from my previous role. So I'm gonna link the previous video somewhere in case you want to check that out. But the main thing I want to discuss today is about the fact, drumroll please, your girl got her O1A visa and secured it nicely and everything was perfect on time. And yeah, I'm currently still in the United States and working on my O1 visa in my current role, which is kind of great. So yeah, I have been getting quite a few questions from a lot of people, my friends' friends, and a few other people all over the LinkedIn that have reached out to me regarding this process for applying and securing the O1 visa. I was anyway planning on making a video about this when I got it, and I didn't get around to doing it. So I was anyway responding to them separately. So I thought I should make kind of like a consolidated video with all the information that I have, how I had prepared for it, what are the different steps that I took, and how basically I approached this whole O1 situation. So that's what this video is going to be about. It's again not very much in theme with like the travel vlogs and stuff. But I really wanted to put it out there because I haven't myself found enough resources with like firsthand experience of the people who got the visa talking so much about it. So I wanted this for as like a easy reference for anybody going through the process, and I hope I can help whoever is wishing to go forward and apply and secure the visa. So let's get started. So yeah, that is basically the main motivation for going forward and making this video. And I also thought so I am personally a pretty organized person when it comes to digital space for most part. So I kind of had a very nice understanding of how I want to proceed and how I want to do all the documentation stuff. And I thought that was pretty helpful. And the people who had seen me go through that process also found that very efficient to move forward with. So stick around to the end of the video to find out exactly what resource I'm talking about. Again, it's kind of a template that can help you with your O1 visa process preparation. You can find that link in the description. So since it's about the O1 process, it might be a multi-part or like at least two-part video because there's a lot of grounds to cover. And even though the timeline was crunched up in less than like 4 or 5 months until from when I got laid off to when I had to secure the visa, it's still a lot of work that went into it. So I don't want to rush everything and make like a really long video. So yeah, might be a multi-part video, and both should go up in pretty soon sequence. So yeah, without further yapping, let's get started. So first things first, when did I think of O1A visa or what the O1A visa was? So back when in 2024, which was my second H1B lottery attempt, I did not get picked. I had reached out to my employer to look into the O1 options. And at the time, I was told yeah, your profile might fit that criteria, so we might be reluctant about looking into it until and unless the H1B third attempt had gone. So personally, I tried to get into the web and try and figure out what the visa is, what does it do, what are the criteria, what are the things that fit my profile, what is something that I already have that will be a very good evidence for this thing, and everything else. So to be honest, I always anyway keep my resume up to date with every little thing that I do, which has been a very big help, especially in terms of interviews or job change or job applications and stuff like that. So one of the things that I started doing is I swear by Google Drive. I have always had pretty much my entire career can be found on Google Drive. So I made a new folder as to what the O1A is, some resources to check out, and then on top of that I also added everything that I had, some research projects that I have done, some conference presentations that I did, and I put them all in a very organized structure, which I'll speak more in the template that I have devised. So anyway, the company back then that I was working with is not the same company that applied for my O1, and I did move into different roles. And since the layoff, I want to be clear that I did not get the jobs because of the O1 specifically, but it was more of like I did secure multiple job offers prior, like following the layoff within a 3 weeks timeline prior to me even getting started on the process. And so I need to be very clear in my message to you that you don't necessarily need to have that particular visa to get multiple offers. Cut to end of March 2025, when the H-1B lottery did not go through, and that was my last attempt for the lottery because I was at that time on F1 STEM OPT extension. So I only had till the end of the year to figure out my work situation, my immigration process, and everything. So when I reached back out to my legal team at the company I was then working with, I won't forget what I was told, but then it was something in the lines of like, oh, I don't think you should apply for O1 because it's not like you have some Nobel Prize or something. So yeah, I don't have a Nobel Prize, but that's not exactly the only category why the visa is for. It kind of bothers you a little when like somebody who is from the legal team especially is just coming up and straight up they'll say, oh, you are not extraordinary enough. And you start to believe it for a second, even though you're pretty confident in what you have done, what you have achieved, and what your skill sets are. But yeah, that wasn't a good experience, I would say. So main thing first that I have been asked quite frequently recently, what the main O1 visa actually is. So the O1 is a US work visa, which is granted to people with extraordinary abilities. And there are a few categories to it. So it can be O1A, which is for mostly STEM and research field or something like that. So basically researchers, engineers and stuff like that. O1B, which is more for music, arts, motion pictures, for like musicians, actors and stuff like that. And then there is O3, which is for like spouse and children of either of the categories O1 holders. In the scope of what the O1, what USCIS defines as like what can qualify for a person to be eligible for appearing and being granted a O1 visa is basically anybody who can prove through real documented and sustained experience or evidence that they are in some of the small percentages of the people who have contributed to the very top of the field, who are working in really niche domains, who have the skill sets that can contribute to the betterment of not only their company or themselves, but also to the industry for US in general. And so the main part of it is you need to show that you have done great work. And you need to show that with not just word of mouth or not just claiming it by yourself. You need actual documented proof. And a few additional things on that. There is no annual cap and there is no specific timeline exactly for applying, which is unlike in case for H-1B, like which is having like lottery. Like right now it's level and wage based, but then otherwise as well. And there is a specific timeline within which you have to file. So you can file O1 at any time during the year. At least that's the news as of now. Like it's granted for different lengths of time. I think the maximum at once is still 3 years, but it depends on the kind of work you are doing, what is the level at which you're working, what is the specific domain of research you are pursuing and stuff like that. So all that said, the bar is significantly real and it's not something that just happens by fluke. If I'm not wrong, you can renew the visa as many times that you need to, given the fact that you are still performing at that highest level and you are constantly working in the domain that your petition was filed. So if I say I am great at research, I can't go tomorrow and say like, leave my research and go and dance. I might be great at dance too, but that's not what I got the O1 visa for. So that's one thing to be very careful about. Like your petition needs to reflect exactly what you are currently doing and why it is important and why and how you wish to continue working on it. You can change jobs and everything, but those are the things you should make sure that you have in mind. The other thing for the basic part of it that I would like to say is like, it is an employer-sponsored visa. So you cannot self-file it. You need either a US employer or an US agent. So from what I understood from my discussions with all the attorneys and the law firms, the US agent route is more common in the O1B category, where it's like you're having an agent, you're an actor or a musician, you're working with multiple parties at once. And in case of O1A, which is my case, basically it's about what are the companies you're working for. It doesn't mean you cannot change jobs. You can, but you need to be very careful about what you are going to change the job to. So there is no concept of O1 transfer. So you know how you can H-1B can be transferred? You cannot do O1 transfer. It has to be a new petition each time when you change the job or whatever. So be very, very careful when you are reapplying for it, because you need to ensure that you have continued that similar standard of work that you were doing or the research you were doing, and the job you are moving to is either at the same level or better than what you were doing before. So coming back to my story, I meet up with close to like 8 or 10 different law firms. I don't understand anything about law. Well, that's not what I studied. One of the things that I wanted to do was to understand what different law firms and different attorneys had to say about what I already have. In most cases, the initial consultation, which is mostly like a 25 to 30 minute call with the law firm or the attorney personally, is usually free, or if not, it can also be a refundable thing. So check that before you book your consultation calls. You need to figure out who are the people who you can trust with your profile, and they will help you make sure that everything that you have done or gained the skills for or have been working towards for multiple years, it's presented in the best possible way to the USCIS. Inventim was the law firm that I had gone through, and I am super grateful to Rohit and entirety of the Inventim team who worked on my case for how involved and how supportive they had been throughout the entire process, whether it was about what documents I needed, how to get recommendations, what the timeline, because I kind of had a timeline crunch. So generally the process that takes about 3-4 months had to be done within like 2.5 months, which is pretty difficult when you are literally making an entire case and preparing an entire case for someone's application. So it was one of the reasons that I straight up selected Inventim was like, they called it for what it was. So if there was something good in my profile, they said like, hey, this is actually very good evidence. Also, this is somewhere where you can make some improvements. This is where you can try and have more evidence or more expertise if you can prove, because you can never, like as an engineer myself, I could never know exactly what all things would count as an evidence, right? And you wouldn't be tracking each and every step ideally, but then that's where a good team of attorneys and law firm helps out. And like you can figure out, they can help you direct your focus on the things that needs the most urgent attention and the ones that is going to benefit you the most. So that's why I had gone with them. You can look up whatever works for your case and based on the timeline, the financial aspect of everything. But yes, so that's that. So following that, once I joined the current company, I think we had almost all the other documentations and requirements ready somewhere by mid-October. So usually O1 petition approval or rejection or RFE takes about 3 to 4 months if I go through general processing. But since I did not have that time in my hand, so I had to go for premium processing when I filed for it. So there's one important thing I want to discuss here about the filing. So you can do two things, okay? One is a consular processing and the other is change of status. So usually when you are having ample amount of time on your current work authorization or visa, you can apply for a change of status. In case of change of status, once your petition is approved by the USCIS, it automatically converts you from, like in my case, it would have been from F1 to O1 visa automatically. So there is lesser of a hassle. But there is a catch. If you are not having enough time on your current work authorization, which I did not, if your visa expires or work authorization expires before the thing is processed on the end at the USCIS end and you have to leave the country, your change of status application would be void, because you are actually not allowed to travel outside the country if you're doing change of status until and unless the processing is completed and it has been approved or whatever be the decision. So even if there is a request for evidence, like if you get an RFE, you still need to be in the country while your lawyers work towards that RFE and like give additional documentation and whatever. So those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind for the change of status. In case of consular processing, it becomes a little more complex because it becomes a 2 different step process. So I had gone for consular processing for obvious reason, because if my thing, even with premium processing, did not get done in time, I would have to leave the country. And once I left, I wouldn't be able to come back in, right? So I applied for consular processing and we filed the thing somewhere around the first week of November. So it's again a little bit sketchy. So until and unless you know for a fact that your petition is approved, you shouldn't try getting out of the country, given the fact that it might be difficult. But if it is something like your work authorization expired and you're going back, makes total sense because you're not allowed to stay in the States. So in consular processing, there are 2 steps. Number 1, your petitioner files for your O1 visa. It has to be approved by USCIS first. Basic step, common among change of status. But in consular processing, there is a second step. You have to be in your home country and go to a consular appointment and have a second round of interview where the USCIS officer or the visa officer is going to determine whether your case, it's up to their discretion basically, your case is good enough or not, and that's when you get the stamp. And based on that, they will decide on spot whether your visa is approved or not. If your visa is approved, they will take your passport. You can collect it from the passport office, consulate later, or it gets mailed to you. At least that's what happens in India. And or else if it is not approved, they will not take your passport. They will just give it back to you. And that's that. So yeah, be very careful about that change of status, consular processing. And be very careful and keep in mind the timeline for which you are applying to. Also, in my case, I've gone for the consular appointment with premium processing, and it took me about 6 business days for the approval, petition approval from USCIS to come back. So once you get that back, you have I-797B and I-797C. Those are the 2 things you actually need when you are scheduling your consular appointment in your home country. So I basically flew back to India on 1st of December, to be honest. Yeah, I flew back on 1st of December. And I already had my biometrics appointment booked as well as my consular interview appointment booked. And it went pretty chill, actually. That process there was pretty easy to given the fact that O1 is not a very common visa category, I kind of lucked out a bit in like availability of consular appointments, which is kind of a tricky thing because sometimes you don't get appointments in your home country, right? Especially India being one of the countries where we get maximum students from. So getting F1 or H1B appointments are sometimes difficult. But then for O1 case, it was fairly straightforward for me because there isn't that much of demand anyway. So I did get the appointment within like a week's time, and my biometrics and consular appointment was spaced out like 2-3 days. And I had my interview, and once I gave the passport, I think I got it back in 3 days, which was nice because I had selected the delivery option. So a few other things that I keep getting questions for is like, did my employer pay? So about the payment part, there are a few things you need to understand. If you're going with your employer's in-house legal counsel, you most likely do not have to pay additional legal fees because the employer is doing all of that, right? But if you're going for a separate external law firm who is going to prepare all the documentation and your employer would be signing off on it as your petitioner, you do need to have the bandwidth for like that external law firm thing. So it can be something that if you have a great employer, they might be willing to pay, or else you have to bear the cost for that. In my case, I did. And there is the employer application fees, I believe, which is somewhere around $1,800 or $1,900. That, in my case, my employer had paid. That's basically the fee you pay to the government as an employer for hiring somebody on O1 visa. I think these values keep changing. I'll put somewhere the current values that I found on the USCIS website, but please do check those things before you apply. And then there is your general application fee and your premium processing fee. So premium processing, when I did it, was like somewhere around $2,895. I mean $2,895, not $28.95. But and yeah, your legal fees would vary firm to firm, or if you're lucky enough, not at all. So that's great. And then and then when you are booking your consular appointment, you basically have to get the visa stamped, and you have to have a DS-160 filing where you need to pay for that and any additional charges about it. So just to keep in mind, if your employer has an in-house legal team who specializes in O1 visas as well, you don't have to actually apply, like have a lot of fees out of your pocket other than maybe premium processing. Not a lot of companies, especially in automotive, do premium processing by themselves. So if you need the company to do premium processing, you might have to pay that out of your pocket. So be careful about that. Ask all those questions when you are getting yourself ready for it. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope whatever I shared did add some value, or if not, at least anybody looking to figure out what other people going through O1 process or transition from a layoff to jobs with taking clock on international visa in the US feel like. That's what the video was for, because when I was looking at it, I just needed to feel like somebody else knows at least what I'm feeling. And I didn't find many options like that, except for on LinkedIn posts, of course. Yeah, I look forward to discussing further in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.